Who gon' bring the game back? Who gon' spit that rainbow on the train tracks? That gold rope, that 5-finger ring rap. Running with my same pack. You can find the Christ where the lepers and the lames at. Life is like a dice game. One roll can land you in jail or cutting cake, blowing kisses in the rice rain.
How's it going, guys? It's me here. It's Matt. I received, a request from a youth that I know from my church, Tavian. He's basically working on a senior project, and so I decided to do this video, that he can use it any way he likes. So what I did was basically I made this article. Not all of it is my work, of course. I just took it from other sites. I'll leave the references at the end of the video. However, all the conclusions are in my own words, and some of the beginning too. Basically, the issue is, I'll go ahead and read a quote. Basically, it says, quote, "The family unit is controversial. Many believe that a traditional family of a man and a woman is the only way to raise a child. The other family units are just as effective." So I'm basically going to be reading this article. So here it goes, and I hope this is very informative. The following quote will be addressed. "The family unit is controversial. Many believe that a traditional family of a man and a woman is the only way to raise a child. That other family units are just as effective." First off, before I address this issue, let's critically analyze the statement. Quote, "The family unit is controversial." Why? On what basis does one claim or conclude that the family unit is controversial? What is the real issue factor that this statement is silent on? Homosexuality and lesbianism. I mean, there's no other way around it. Otherwise, why would it say that the family unit is controversial? It would have just stuck on the fact that the other family units are just as effective, if that's a fact, and we're going to find out later on in this video. Next statement. Family units are just as effective. I would argue that those who believe that a traditional family of a man and a woman is the only way to raise a child are not arguing whether it is done simply because it is effective, but it's done because it is the irreplaceable model of human life and reality for the child. It is normal. It is the unconquerable pattern found in all productive, sustaining life species on Earth, of any species, including for the human species to directly and perpetually inherit something that can only be done in the line of family, of traditional family, of the male-female family, something to be passed on. And because it is right, not just because it works, it's more than just a good idea. That is the basis and the standpoint that the traditional family is formed. That's where they're coming from. The alternative family is coming from a basis that they claim that it's just as effective. As you can see, compared to the traditional family, the alternative family does not have a lot of depth behind it like the traditional family does. As long as it's effective, that's all that matters. So those are the two bases that those claims one is making their standpoint from. Next, let's approach this from a scientific and psychological standpoint so we can logically conclude what is best and safest for the raising of children. The following lists are from studies that cover factors and patterns found in alternative family structures and how the lack of natural complementarity, or in other words, traditional families, the lack of that negatively impacts individuals involved. 1. Pseudo-husband or wife. The man imitating the role of the wife senses and is unmanly to be dependent on another man. The woman imitating the role of the husband often still wants to mother. 2. Parent-child. The younger male partner, by accepting the child role, sacrifices his right to become a full adult. The woman, on the other hand, accepting the child role, becomes permanently dependent. the relationship is inherently incestuous. 3. Asexual friendship. Many same-sex relationships start passionately and quickly dissolve into asexual friendships. The same-sex friend no longer excites passion. The males in asexual friendships engage in a casual sex outside the relationship. Among women, the, quote, dead bed is common. Asexual friendships do not need to be recognized as marriages. Clones/confusion. Persons in some same-sex relationships try to eradicate all differences. Individuality is not tolerated. Loneliness caused by abstinence of the other sex or fear of the other sex caused by abuse. The persons involved sacrifice their natural heterosexuality. These relationships are inherently unstable, and the person may, when the opportunity occurs, return to a heterosexual relationship. So that's the 5th issue. They go back to being normal. So where does that leave the child? Same-sex relationships do not promote the best interests or meet the real needs of the persons involved. The push for social recognition may be motivated by the horrendous belief that their relationship problems are caused by external forces rather than the inherent lack of true complementarity. In other words, an opposite force, male, female, something to complement you. Children acquired by same-sex couples are also subject to problems inherent in their status. Well, let's skip over that. In addition, same-sex couples are more likely to be at risk for a number of problems which directly impact their ability to parent. What are these problems? 1. Intrinsic factors. Every child acquired by a same-sex couple has by definition been separated from one or both of his logical parents through death, desertion, single parenthood, foster care, adoption, artificial insemination donor, or surrogate motherhood. Even in the best of circumstances, such separation is perceived by the child as a loss. For traditional marriages, there's nothing to lose because he's got his mom and dad. Moving on. Same-sex couple is never the best of circumstances. It is by definition second best because it lacks a parent of both sexes. And my point is, basically, you ain't getting the best of both worlds. First-hand experience in one world, no-hand experience in the other. Alright, moving on. Worse still, this particular tragedy is not accidental, but the result of a conscious, planned action of the persons of whom the child is dependent. In other words, they're guardians. Same-sex guardians. These children are purposefully and permanently made fatherless or motherless. In addition, same-sex families with children function like a cult. The child's loss is denied. So what they're saying is it's basically minimized for the quote-unquote better on your new family path. But what about what's good for the child? You know, the path is not the child. Moving on. Children are made to feel that their legitimate desire for a parent of both sexes is a betrayal of their family's sacrifice in the face of a hostile, non-accepting, homophobic culture. They pretty much never cover that issue in the media. 2. Risk factors. A person with SSA are far more likely than married men and women to suffer from psychological disorders, sexual addiction, and a word I can't pronounce, suicidal ideation and attempts, unstable relationships, health problems, and to have been victims of abuse or violence. In other words, trying to find ways to cope with innate needs that discredit what same-sex parents cannot offer or give to the child, they are encouraged to think are not important or to ignore, hence all the above. These problems rarely occur individually. So in other words, it's occurring across the board. Anyway, many persons with same-sex associations suffer from a combination of disorders. In addition, each same-sex relationship contains two persons who are at risk, doubling the potential of a suboptimal optimum outcome. One has to ask, are social workers intentionally ignoring problems when placing children with same-sex couples who have serious problems? Something to think about. And also, it should always be remembered that sexually active homosexuals have a lower life expectancy due to the unhealthy sexual behaviors in which they engage. And I say that sympathetically. Evidence supporting the material presented here can be found in quote-unquote one man, one woman. Those who need specific references may email DALEMOLEARY@yahoo.com or visit DALEOLEARY.wordpress.com. Let's not leave any other family units out there either. You know, once again, we're talking about alternatives, so let's talk about all the alternative ones. Children staying with other family members, such as uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, non-immediate family members, or non-related guardians, are all factors that increase the risk of children, adding to the number of victims of incest or parent-child sex. Okay, so conclusion 1. We can therefore conclude that despite the risk factors shared by both traditional and alternative families, the number of issues that can only be found in alternative family structures adds more risk to the child's development due to additional amount of issues the child must take on. We can therefore conclude that such an environment does not yield the best interest in the development of the child. So let's go ahead and move on. But let's give the alternative families an easy victory. Let's ignore the arena of science, psychology, and logical conclusions. Let's pass them to the next grade anyway. So, next grade, next subject, next up. Let's approach this from the deciding factor of the judicial system of the world we live in today, so we can again conclude what is best and safest for the raising of children.